Today I'm going to tell you the good and the bad of our first government. So let's get started. How's it going, everybody? Welcome to Virtual History 360. I'm Mr. Wade and I love history, and I bet you do too. That's why you're watching this video. So be sure to check out my other videos in this playlist to watch something that you will find helpful. Also, be sure to stick around until the end of the video to hear about the straw that broke the camel's back when it came to the Articles of Confederation. But before we get to that, I think it is important to go back to the beginning. Well, the beginning of our country, of course. You see, we were declaring our independence from England, and by getting rid of that government, we needed something to replace it. States had already begun the process all the way back in January of 1776. New Hampshire was the first to technically declare themselves independent when they wrote their own constitution. Now, a constitution is a rule book, and New Hampshire sounded a lot like what we have today. The rest of the states soon followed, of course. Now, each state set up their legislature to make laws, and most were bicameral, meaning they were split into two houses. Each state also had a governor to make sure the laws were carried out, and of course they had a court system to interpret the laws. The states also listed their rights, such as trial by jury, but they also talked about how Enlightenment ideas like life, liberty, and property should be protected. Clearly, these states were influenced by the Magna Carta and the English Bill of Rights. These states got the ball rolling. But, we still needed a system for the whole country, right? Well, remember that we are fighting to get rid of a tyrant king. So the plan for the country was a confederation of states. Basically a league of friendship between the states. Now, in this system, they retained most of the power rather than putting the power in the central government. The Articles of Confederation were written in 1777. But were not ratified or approved by all 13 states until 1781. Unlike what the states put together, the Articles only had a one-house legislature. There was not an executive or a judicial branch. So let's talk about the good and the bad, the strengths and the weaknesses of the Articles of Confederation. To begin with, there was good, okay? The national government was set up to keep the country running during the war, and it worked. It wasn't perfect, but it controlled the army and it dealt with foreign countries. After the war, it was less productive. Since the Articles required 9 out of 13 states to add a new law, it was very challenging, but not impossible. There were 2 ordinances that came out of this era that shaped the future of the United States. These were the Ordinance of 1785 and the Northwest Ordinance. Both deal with the lands to the west of the current states. And although it is the middle of our current country, this was the west back then. Basically, these laws set out how the land was to be surveyed, meaning measured, and sold. Land was to be divided into townships that were 6 miles square, 6 miles by 6 miles. The Northwest Ordinance set up the structure of the government for the Northwest Territory and established the procedure to apply for statehood. But the most important thing to come out of these 2 laws was this quote: "There shall be neither slavery nor involuntary servitude in said territory." This was the first time the U.S. government had tried to limit the spread of slavery, planting the seeds for future compromises and conflicts. Now, what about the weaknesses? Well, I have an entire video dedicated to them, so I'll just summarize them quickly here. Remember, there was only a legislative branch, but they could not pass laws without 9 out of 13 states. And if they wanted to change the articles themselves, it required all 13 states to agree. Basically impossible. And remember how we didn't want a tyrannical government? So although they had some power, they couldn't collect taxes from the states. They basically had no money to do anything because of this. Now, of course, the central government could ask the states to borrow money, but what do you think the states told them? Exactly. No. The same with enforcing their laws. There was not a president or a court to make the states do what they said. If a state didn't agree with the law, they just didn't follow it. There was not any real consequence. With these weaknesses, cracks began to show. But there was one event that is remembered as being the straw that broke the camel's back, meaning the last thing before a major change was made. That would be Shays' Rebellion. Daniel Shays was a Revolutionary War hero who retired from the army to be a farmer in Massachusetts. After the war, the national government was not able to raise money to pay the pensions, or retirement plans, of their former soldiers. Combine this with the fact that trade slowed down and farmers could not sell their crops. On top of that, the states were trying to pay off their own debt. So what did they do? They raised taxes on their citizens. Put all of this together, and farmers could not pay the taxes, and the states started to take their farms away to settle the debt. The national government had no power to help the farmers or stop the foreclosures of their farms. This is when Shays stepped up. You see, he did not feel that he should be punished for a problem created by the state. 1,200 other farmers agreed with him. They marched to the federal arsenal to arm themselves. Then they marched to Boston. It took about a year before the Massachusetts militia was able to completely stop the rebellion. And in that time, people realized that we needed a national government that could protect the citizens. That is why men like Alexander Hamilton and George Washington called for a convention to change the Articles. Of course, we know they did more than just amend, but that's a story for another day. Leave a comment below telling me what you think about the theory that Shays' Rebellion was the last step before changing the Articles of Confederation and changing the government and changing it to what we have today. While you're there, go ahead and hit that like button for me. And, don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. I make more videos and you'll probably like them, so be sure to check them out. Check out the other videos like the ones you see on the side over here. I have other history videos, civics videos, as well as one shot in 360, so check them out. For Virtual History 360, I'm Mr. Wade. I'll see you next time.